This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Coffee Fueled Stories. Coffee Fitness Unicorn. Coffee Fitness Unicorn. Hello. It's me, Coffee Fitness Unicorn, your pocket DJ, and you're listening to a very special edition of the Coffee Chats podcast. This is a special Halloween edition with special guests Joe Carro and Paul Carro. So we're here to talk about Little Coffee Shop of Horrors Anthology 2. How awesome is that? Why don't you tell the listeners who you are, and then we'll deep dive into the book. Sound cool?
Great. Why don't you go ahead, Joe?
I'm Joe Carro, or Joseph Carro, as is on the book. I'm a nerd living in Vermont currently, but I'm from Maine. And my uncle, Paul, is the one who kind of came up with this idea and roped me into doing the stories with him. It's been a really fun project. We're on volume number 2, and it's just been really fun kind of coming up with all these stories, going to different coffee shops, and yeah, that's about where I'm at.
Great. And I'm Paul Carro. So basically been writing in LA for quite a few years now, mostly movie and TV over the years, and recently around 2018 finally got back into writing books, and especially in the horror genre, which is what I love, which is my thing. But I will just say about the book, that what the Little Coffee Shop of Horrors Anthology is, for those that might not know, is the concept was don't just create an anthology, say, themed around vampires or zombies or whatever. It was to each of us visit 12 different coffee shops per volume, and let that place dictate a story. Let the environment you're in, the space you're in, the state you're in, whatever it is, create the ambience for the story. And that's kind of where we were at. COVID made it difficult in the first year and lingered in the second. And I'm kind of hoping with volume 3 in the future, we can both actually travel further and go to newer places. But yeah, that's what the thing's all about.
Very cool. Yeah. And so before we deep dive into the stories, and I have a bunch of questions for you guys, and hopefully if time permits, I also have some what I call quick answer, or rapid answer questions at the very end. But I wanted to talk about the cover for this particular one, because it is the creepy clown covered in blood and the red and white big top. So what is the story behind that? How did you guys come up with that creepy cover?
I can cover that one. So basically, obviously one of the stories takes place in sort of that environment. And there's a great cover artist. Her name is Paramita. And I believe she's based in India, of all places, but really, truly talented, wonderful, nice woman. And she does these amazing covers, and sometimes she works in advance on them and kind of showcases them, and then you can work with her to adjust them. And when I saw her working on this clown, I'm like, this is actually one of the stories, and I thought that was fantastic. And so it's really divergent from the first cover in a pretty big way. But because it fits so well, that we went with that. And I've actually already now working with her on some other covers for some other projects.
Do clowns creep you guys out as much as they creep me out?
Yeah.
That story. This is going to be really hard, because I loved all of your stories in both volume 1 and volume 2, each one. And I love that you guys introduced in this volume, the coffee pairings That was really cool. Is that something that like you both came up with, or did it like how did that happen? The coffee pairings, like who did Joe? Were you like, hey, we should do a coffee pairing with the coffee stories?
That was all on Paul.
And I'll have you say like the drinks that you guys chose. Like I was drooling at every suggestion because I have never tried a maple latte. And
Oh
being
yeah,
that you guys are from Maine, I was like, come on, you guys. And then the maple ice cream, I'm like, you guys are freaking killing me here. And then
yeah,
the London
Vermont.
fog. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So let's let's go into the introduction. You talk about the shadow people in the introduction. And so my question to both of you is, do you say a little prayer to the horror writing gods before you walk in to the coffee shop for some bloody good inspo, or do you say anything to yourself before you walk into the shops? Joe, I'll start with you.
I guess, yeah. I mean, there's, I can't speak for my uncle Paul, but I know that if he's anything like me, he's got like a ton of ideas all the time. So I imagine he's probably someone like me. He's a little bit more prolific in his writing, but I've always got sort of like little seeds going on. So I think in a way, yeah, maybe I kind of do that lately with these things, like, you know, what kind of thing can I come up with here? Like what's the story with this town I'm in now or whatever? Trying to draw some sort of inspiration. Especially with this second volume. The first volume was sort of like more opportunistic just because of COVID and everything.
Right.
But yeah, this one, I was all over the place, but
And I loved them. I loved your stories. They were all really good. So, and
thank
like I
you.
said, we'll tap into that. What about you, Paul? Do you ask for a little inspo beside? And I know that you sometimes you see something that sparks an idea. Do you kind of say to yourself like, okay, come on, give me a good story here, or give me some good inspiration before you walk into that coffee shop?
Yeah, no, I definitely go in hoping for the best, praying that something pops up. And the biggest reason is, because like Joe mentioned, I do have a million ideas, and I'm going to be writing for a long, long time. I waited so long to write in this genre that the dominoes are lined up and projects are going to fall. But the thing about this one, and why we've limited it to the two of us so far and haven't brought in outside writers, which is something we're looking at for future volumes, is that my goal is to be genuine about it. Is that I genuinely didn't go in and already had an idea that I fleshed out there. I went in and had an epiphany, and something I never would have written comes about because of this. And I would say all but one story that I did have some idea in the past on, all of these came about from where I was. I would have written The Big Guy had I not been, where I was. So I allow that to really influence me. And I like that about this anthology. It's what makes it exciting for me.
Absolutely. And I always feel like, so not to use the cliche of like roller coaster, because obviously that's a different story. And that one is, by the way, that was intense. That it was really hard to not like kind of get sick a little bit reading that one. I was like, oh my God, this is so disgusting, but I loved every minute of it. So, and that's another thing. Both you guys have excellent pacing with each story as you're reading, and you kind of introduce each story with your coffee, and you just and literally you kind of like you strap in and you're like, okay, where are these two guys taking me? You kind of feel like you're getting jerked around, and you kind of going up and down, and it's like it's really fast. So
Nice. Thanks.
I'm gonna go ahead and start with some silly questions. So
Sure.
Are you guys ready?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, ready.
If you were a coffee drink, what would you be?
Joe, you're the coffee expert. How about you go first?
Oh God. Yeah, we've had discussions like this where I worked in the coffee shop for the past 12 years. I don't really know exactly. I think maybe a chai. That's sort of like my go-to all the time. Sort of a safe spot in between too much caffeine and not enough caffeine. it's not really going to dehydrate you all that much. So I like to think that I'm not that dry, but I I think it's probably a good description. I'm kind of I can be spicy, but I'm a little, pretty chill most of the time.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Chai. I like that. All right. Your nickname is now Chai. What about you, Paul? What coffee beverage would you be?
Yeah, probably a cappuccino. It's like once you get through all the foam, you get to know me. So I'm a little quiet on the surface, but once you get past that and we get friendly, then I'm much more talkative and friendly. So that's probably me. I'm a cappuccino.
I like that. I like that. Cappuccino and chai. I like it. Halloween costumes. Your first Halloween costume. Who or what were you? Do you remember?
Boy, I believe I was originally, probably one of the earliest ones that I remember is this old TV show, Greatest American Hero, and made a homemade outfit for that, and that was a lot of fun. And I still love that costume. I wish I had it.
I can hear the theme song right now.
I was like, believe it or not, I'm walking. Come on, Joe. I never thought I could feel so free. What about you, Joe? What was your first Halloween costume? Who or what was it?
Oh God, I don't remember my first one at all. I think probably one of the earliest ones I remember was those like really cheesy, like sort of vinyl costumes that you could buy off the rack with like the Simpsons. So I had like a Bart Simpson plastic mask with a string around.
Nice.
My little sister was Lisa, and
awesome.
I know I was Bart at one point. I think that's probably the earliest one I can remember. So probably in the 90s. But
so this, I don't know if you guys are both into this, but you kind of addressed it in the Bennington Beast, cryptids or cryptozoology. So I just learned about, there is an International Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Bangor. Am I saying that correct? Bangor.
Bangor.
Yeah. Have either of you been?
I've been to the one in Portland, but not the one in Bangor.
And is that it? Like, what does the museum entail? Is that like, does it have like Mothman or like, what is that?
When I went, I heard, since I've heard that they've improved it a lot. Back when I went, it was just sort of like something you would see on like the highway, where they would have like the world's largest ball of yarn or something. It was sort of like those kind of vibes, it wasn't really well funded, but they're getting like more funding and stuff all the time. So it's just like, things about Bigfoot and, local kind of cryptids like that. I think they had a thing on the Beast of Turner, Maine, which was in the newspapers at some point, like a few years back. Everyone wanted to know what that was, but yeah, it was mostly kind of hokey, but it was fun. It was really fun to just kind of poke through and see all these sculptures and things like that they had there.
Very cool. I just recently learned about these places and things like that. So I thought this would be an excellent, and especially considering it's the International Museum, I thought I'd ask you guys about it. Joe, sorry. So Paul, have you been?
No, that was before my time. I had left Maine prior to that. So
got it. All right. So this is favorite classic horror monster. Who is your favorite classic horror monster? Or I guess I could say monsters. If you can't decide who your favorite monster is, you can have favorite monsters. Have you noticed how Coffee Fueled Stories doesn't have any ads? That's because I work tirelessly to keep this show alive. After 3 years on my own, I've decided I need to ask for your help. I've never asked anyone to subscribe. I've never asked anyone to leave a review. I've never asked anyone to rate the show. And I've never asked anyone to pay to listen. There are a few ways you can help support the show. I've created a Patreon page, Coffee Fueled Stories, and a subscription section on my podcast website. It's simple to support and help me keep my dream alive. Just click the link in the show notes to set up your paid subscription option. It's that easy. Thank you for your support.
I've got this one chambered, so I'll go. Yeah, mine is still the Gill Man, still the creature from the Black Lagoon, and mostly because I had a little 8mm reel that I used to play over and over and over again from a yard sale I got when I was a kid. So no sound, no nothing, just the scariest clips from the film edited together, and freaked me out, but I also loved it. And I've since seen it here in LA on the big screen with the lead actress's daughter in attendance, and that was a lot of fun. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Joe? What is your favorite classic horror monster or monsters?
And we're talking about classic, like as in the old like Bela Lugosi era, or
Yeah. So like Wolfman, along those lines. Any of the classics. Like we'll go with classics because today I've got other stuff chambered, so to speak. I love that, by the way. Other questions coming in the rapid fire section.
I guess it would probably count. I think probably the scariest one I ever thought of out of that whole kind of era was maybe even slightly before, with Nosferatu from the 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly when. That guy always creeped me out. Like it. The other ones were sort of like, guilty pleasures. I would watch, Wolfman or Frankenstein or whatever. I did a drawing of Frankenstein from the old movies at one point, just because I like the aesthetic of the movie and everything. But I think Nosferatu is like the creepiest for sure to me.
For sure. Speaking of drawings, that's also something you guys did with volume 2. You guys had drawings in the beginning and drawings at the end. So you guys did a lot of different things with volume 1 and with volume 2. So I'm looking forward to volume 3 whenever that comes out. But what was your was that something that you like? Same thing. How did you guys like brainstorm this stuff? Like, hey, what do you think if we had some drawings and like it looks like this, or who did you have do those drawings? Because I was looking and I wasn't sure if it was the same as your cover artist or not.
Yeah, no, this came about. I think one thing is, we have the concept down, and we're, like I said, so excited by the concept. It's really a lot of fun, that part. But then, I go back, and anthologies meant so much to me growing up. I mean, it really is. As much as I love the novels, anthologies is what I lived and breathed as a kid growing up. And I just thought back to some of the best ones that had some really creepy images inside, and the images were always so obscure compared to what the story was. So it actually came about through the evolution of the AI stuff coming out. We actually utilized that. So Joseph did some through an AI program. I did some through, we ensured copyright stuff got cleared. There were some issues there I dealt with. But yeah, it was actually used through AI, and we used the one program to do the header pictures to keep it consistent. And then 2 different programs, at the tail end. And like I said, Joseph kind of, got the ones for his stories that he felt fit best. And I got the ones for mine that I felt fit best as best we could through the AI.
It was funny too, because, I didn't realize, so I have the electronic version and the print version, and I didn't realize there's color in the, and I was like, oh, wow. Like the stories, so they like kind of like really popped, and I thought, holy crap. I'm like, again, these guys just keep blowing me away. So seriously, just keep them coming, because like I said, I'm addicted to them, and I can't get enough. So favorite Halloween candy, and there's no wrong answers, no debates. So this is your preference. It's like dealer choice here. So, Joe, what is your favorite Halloween candy? And there's no wrong answer. No one can say that's the grossest thing ever. It's all you, man.
Mine, I guess, varied over the years, but I would say probably the ultimate favorite ended up being Dots. I don't know if you ever had those Dots,
yes,
like the little gumdrop things, and they had the Halloween versions with like black and orange ones. So those ultimately ended up being my favorite, but I think way back, it was probably either the Reese's peanut butter cups or the Kit Kat.
Nice. Yummy, yummy, yummy. What about you? Paul?
Repeat there, Reese's, of course. But the bigger thing was the full-size candy bars. My friends that I used to go trick-or-treating with, we would try to have a second mass so you could go around a second time to the houses that had the full-size ones. But
Nice.
yeah, but Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, that's the tops.
That's a classic. That's a classic. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. Sorry, it's very noisy. It is the Jelly Belly Monster Mash.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys have, so it's caramel corn, green apple, jewel grape soda, jewel orange, and wild blackberry. Have you guys tried these Monster Mash candies?
I love Jelly Belly, but I haven't tried that particular one.
No, yeah, I haven't tried it either. Sounds great though.
And then I have here, I did a video earlier. These are my pumpkin spice espresso beans.
Oh, nice.
Are you guys pumpkin spice fans?
Yeah, thumbs up here.
I worked for the coffee company, like I said, so I maybe had one just to kick off the season, and other than that, I kind of got sick of pumpkin spice fever. But I understand it. I totally get it.
For sure. So that being said, what is your favorite fall fruit and fall smell?
Let's see, I would say for the fall fruit, I went to college where we had actual apple orchards. So it's not my go-to fruit year round, but when it's that time of year, getting those apples straight from the tree is pretty epic. And especially when we would make them into cider ourselves, apple cider. We did that right at the college. So that was a lot of fun. And I would say the smells, I just think of, there's that smell of burning leaves that a lot of people do at a certain point when they're falling off the trees, and they, and sometimes they would just burn the piles down. And to me, that was always a pleasant smell. So, but other than that, it would be pumpkin spice. So sorry, Joe. It's I like the smell and the drink. So
no judgment.
This is a safe space. That's why, because if you had said candy corn, because that's a big debate too. Supposedly Almond Joy is a serial killer candy. So I love them. It's like I said, there is no wrong answer. This is your show, and you can say whatever you want.
Gonna check the missing person posters around your place, though.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your favorite fall fruit and fall smell, Joe?
I basically came from the same place Paul did, so my answer is pretty much the same thing. I like apples. I actually like Fuji apples. Those are my favorite kind. And when I actually buy fruit, I tend to only buy like apples or bananas, sometimes berries. But in the fall, basically any apple that I can actually pick myself from the orchard is my favorite because they're so fresh. And I would say probably my favorite smells is the same thing. Like when you're walking outside in a place like Maine or Vermont, the chill air, it has its own kind of smell, but then when it mixes with the smell of the burning leaves or the fireplace that people have going, to me that it just, I don't know, something about that.
Absolutely, yeah. Wood burning fireplaces, that smell is awesome. So let's see. If you could be any monster, who would you be, or what would you be? And it doesn't necessarily have to be related to your favorite monster. If you could be any monster, who or what would it be?
I would say the Invisible Man is an obvious one, but that would probably be it. And based on the new version that came out a few years ago, I would consider the Invisible Man a monster now, but I wouldn't have those characteristics. I certainly hope from that film, but it would be pretty amazing to be able to go around the world and observe and not be seen. So that would probably be my pick.
Are we still going with classic monsters, or
it's whomever? Like I said, this is as wide open as you want it to be.
Definitely a xenomorph then.
Nice.
They're armored. They're very agile. They're like the apex predator. I would definitely, my chances of survival would probably be pretty good with being a xenomorph.
Nice. I love that answer. Let's go with New Orleans. There is a story that takes place in New Orleans. So my question to you guys, both of you, is have either of you been to Anne Rice's house in New Orleans?
That's all Joe on this one. I haven't been there myself yet.
I didn't go to Anne Rice's house. I did go pretty close to the infamous LaLaurie Mansion, around the place where my story takes it's like in that area, same area. They filmed one of the scenes in Interview with the Vampire. It's like the tavern scene, where Lestat is hanging out in the tavern. They he kind of bites a barmaid or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but that was the house that it was in. But no, I didn't go to Anne Rice's house.
The very first movie premiere I ever went to when I arrived in LA was Interview with a Vampire, and that after party was epic. So yes, Brad, Tom, everybody, but it was set up like a gothic. It was inside a tent. It was outside at night. But it was set up with a very gothic theme under the tent, and it looked like the movie. And it's like, okay, I'm like 2 days into LA basically, and this is what I'm walking into, and it was pretty amazing.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's insane. That's insane. And the reason I asked about Anne Rice's house is, so my friends and I, we were stationed in Turkey together. And then I got stationed in Arkansas, and they got stationed in Gulfport, Mississippi. And so we decided to meet up in New Orleans for Thanksgiving. Nice. And I didn't know that Anne Rice lived there. And so they took me to Anne Rice's house. And this was back in 95 or 95. It was in 95. And so we were standing there walking around, just, kind of nerding out. And they opened the front door, and we were standing right at their gate at the sidewalk, and they just closed the door, and they're like, oh. And so I was like, Anne Rice just slammed the door on our face. That's awesome.
Wow. That is super. That is very cool.
I was like, we were like, so we were like, should we take pictures of it? Should we take pictures and be like, this is the documented moment where we got the door slammed in our face? But we didn't. But it was kind of cool. So quick answers, rapid fire questions, whatever you guys want to do. So I'm just gonna read off the question, and then whoever wants to jump in, if you guys jump on each other at the same time, that's okay. We're just gonna have some fun with this. Most
7.
coffees in a day. 7?
Yeah,
like 8. Yeah, 8 or 9 maybe.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. And do you remember the worst coffee you had and where? Don't say it, but do you remember the worst coffee you've had and where?
Yes, and it was bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the weirdest coffee you've had? And weird can be I'll use the example coffee banana smoothie. I've had that before. So whatever you think the weirdest coffee is, have you ever had the weirdest coffee?
I had a raspberry version that was just, and I love raspberry, and this thing was just undrinkable. It had weird raspberry swirls. It had, I don't even know. It was the weirdest thing. Yeah, that was not pleasant, but that was probably the weirdest one I had. And it was a signature drink at this one place.
What about you, Joe?
Like a THC kind of infused coffee, which was kind of weird.
Yeah. If you could be trapped in a horror movie, which one would you pick? If you could be
Cabin in the Woods.
Nice. The Descent, because I love caves, even though it's scary.
Nice. And the scariest place you've ever visited?
Ooh, a Burger King. Yeah, it was on the Turnpike. I used to have my own paranormal investigation group, and I had a pipe thrown at me in the basement. It used to be a Howard Johnson's, and I got a really angry male voice on a recording that basically shouted, "Die!"
Oh my God!
Wow. Yeah, I've been in some real, bad things like real life and then earthquakes and all that. So I'll kind of bypass that stuff. And I would say supernatural, scary wise, was a Lodge Hall in Windham, Maine, where I grew up, where I had an experience there that was beyond creepy. And I did recap that one in my Tales of the Three book. But that was a super, super scary event where there were footsteps overhead, and I was painting the first floor. There was no way to get up to the second floor without making footprints in front of me. And I had spilled some paint, so my dad had to leave to go get more paint. So I was there alone. And yeah, somebody was running up and down the place, all over the place above me, above my head. So pretty creepy. That was scary.
Oh my God. So that ties into the next question. How many haunted houses, real or other, have you been to?
A bunch, yeah, probably at least 10 plus, maybe 20.
Oh
Yeah,
my
probably
God.
4 for me. Yeah.
That's insane. Like, and did you stay there, Paul? Like,
Well, I did the Titanic all the time. Not the Titanic,
Ooh.
sorry. Queen Mary. Queen Mary, not the Titanic. That'd be really scary. Yeah, I did the Queen Mary is in Long Beach here, and I've never had the haunted experience, but I've taken their tours, and I've spent the night many nights. It's a great getaway. Unfortunately, it's currently dry docked, and you can't stay there right now. But that, and then of course, being in LA, I've gone up to the Winchester House, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. So Joe, your paranormal, with the paranormal, like you said you had a paranormal, like what did you do? Like, how did you do that? Like, I'm fascinated with that. I've it's kind of something that I don't know anything about.
Yeah, I had a group called the Ghost Gumshoes. I registered in Maine as a place you could actually like hire and come investigate your house if you wanted for free. Like I didn't charge anyone for it. I was just curious about it, so I went to. I had like a photographer. I had a whole team, so I had like a photographer, someone to take like the temperature readings, and like the other person would take notes, and so we'd collaborate with all of our quote unquote evidence and see if say for example we heard a bang at a certain point in time, someone would be like, oh well, that was at X amount of time, because they were keeping track of the time, and then the other person would write down what happened at that time, so we could if we saw like an orb or something like that on the film at X amount of time, we could then be like, oh well, is the orb at the same time as the bang that we heard? So it's just sort of like a fun thing, because I don't think anyone really knows what ghosts are, or things like that. So I think it's fun just to sort of like investigate yourself, just see what kind of stuff you can get out of the experience. But yeah, there's definitely some creepy stuff, and the weird cryptid one I wrote, that actually happened to me. I still don't know what that was, but I put part of it into the story. So there's all sorts of stuff out there. I don't really know what's going on, but
And would you say that like part of not knowing some of these things is kind of what draws you guys into horror? Like, does it like because there's these elements of the unknown? Is that what brought you Joe and you Paul like into horror?
Yeah, I think so. For me, like I'll just isolate, say, the ghost part, because I love writing the stories in that, and that one for me is you're dealing with a character that can no longer speak for themselves, and something horrible happened, and how do you find out what happened when that person doesn't have a voice? And I think we all want a sense of justice in those instances. And that was kind of like the first story in the book, kind of deals with that a bit. So for me, that's why I feel the ghost story is timeless, because, tragedy is timeless, unfortunately. And it just is the thought that people are trying to reach out from somewhere different, and it's not able to communicate in the same manner. And that to me is just so intriguing. So just isolating it to that genre of horror, I would say that's my interest in that kind of thing.
So I know that I just stopped the rapid fire questions when we started talking about the stuff because it was kind of crazy and kind of funny, because I was like, ooh, that's something new that we haven't talked about yet. So literally there was one question left of the rapid fire, so I am sorry we have lost the momentum. But so last horror movie or book you saw or read?
Halloween Ends. It was the last one I just went to. So,
Oh.
yeah,
I haven't seen that one yet. That's on our list.
Yeah. I slight disappointment on my side, unfortunately, but Jamie Lee Curtis, just chef's kiss. She was just the best in this, and just love her to death, and see her locally too. That's the other nice LA thing. So I do see her around, especially near Santa Monica and the LA Library and such. So yeah.
Oh, that is so cool. That is so. My cheeks are I'm smiling so hard right now. That's freaking awesome. And then Joe, you were holding up the book.
Oh yeah, I can't. I watch movies like nonstop in the background, so I really can't remember what the last horror movie I watched was. But I'm almost done reading Joe Hill's Black Phone. I haven't watched the movie yet, but I was holding off. I saw it available to watch, and I wanted to wait till after I read this. But it's sort of an odd collection. It's really good though.
So, do you guys talk about? Do you guys message each other on a regular basis, or do you guys only message when it's like, hey, it's anthology time? What do you say we, start working and collaborating again? Or what is your guys' relationship? How does that work?
Oh, you go for it, Joe.
Basically, we were both busy for a while and kind of lost touch, and I was going to grad school, and he was busy in his own life, so we lost touch a little bit. And then unfortunately my grandmother, his mother, passed, and that's how we sort of started talking again when he came up to Maine, and that's when he pitched me the idea. But I would say that the majority of our connection comes from the professional level at the moment anyway. But I think we're starting to talk more, and things like that, just outside of that whole thing. He got me interested in comic books and Star Wars and stuff like that. He would always give me a free comic book, when I would go visit my grandmother. He would let me pick from a stack, and I consider him, he helped me kind of learn how to read and stuff in that way, and to become interested in these things. And he kind of pushed me toward becoming a screenwriter at one point, which I really wanted to, but then Hollywood's just making sequels and things like that and reboots. So he seems to have switched focus to writing books, and that's what I went to school for. So that's what I'm kind of doing right now as well. So it just sort of aligned, I guess. And yeah, it's been really fun.
So if I'm going to ask you a silly question. So if I want to become a member of the Carro family, do I have to grow a beard too? You guys look like brothers, and it's because you both have that, I love your guys' beard. I can't stop staring at your beard. You guys have such a cool look. And I was like, do you guys are you I want to start growing my beard out like you?
I switched mine up because I'm cosplaying as William Butcher from The Boys coming up. I'm going to Salem this weekend. So I darkened mine a little bit, and I trimmed it a little bit to try to look more like Carl Urban's, but nobody can be Carl Urban except for Carl Urban.
Oh, so. Yeah, his character is great. And Paul, you have your whole chin is it's and you were just saying, Joe, you've got the little cutouts right there. Do these things have names? Are there because I know there's mutton chops and stuff, but are there different names for beards?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there is. I do know that mine is more a response to just in the fall and winter, especially. Honestly, once COVID hit, I think was when it really started, where I just let it go, and now it just reminds me of home. So it is a little bit of a back east homage, and I just kind of let it ride, and it's just makes me feel like home a little bit. So I let it be what it is, and just let it go.
I thought about putting mascara on my face and to mess with you guys, but I was like, no, I don't want you guys to think I was I didn't want it to be I was making fun of you guys, but I genuinely do love your appearance. I think it's really I respect the beard. Do you guys talk about the same beard products? Do you guys share beard products now that you guys are talking about?
We haven't done that yet, no.
No, add it to the list.
Did you know?
I will say though, by the way, Joe, the Black Phone movie, amazing. One of the best movies of the year. So
yeah, I want to watch it really bad.
Yeah, fantastic, honestly. So
now, Paul, do you share with Joe like inside stuff? Are you like, hey, this is coming out, you're gonna have to check it out? Like, do you get like early notifications of the stuff before the rest of us do?
Yeah, I get to a million premieres and all of that, but I generally they put you on lockdown on that stuff where you can't really talk about it, and if something slips out, you get those credentials pulled. So I generally have learned to just not say a word till until the embargo. They call them embargoes. Once they lift an embargo, you can then review it and say stuff about it publicly. So I don't even do that in private to anyone, just based on the ability to be able to see that stuff early. I enjoy that, right? And that not right, but that gift I got. So yeah.
Joe, tell us about the movie you're in with Kelsey Grammer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience. I of course got locally popular in Mobile, Alabama, where I was for like 2 or 3 years, and some of the people following me on TikTok reached out and were like, "You should try to get on this movie as an extra because they're filming." And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" So I went. I sent in my headshot and everything like you're supposed to, and they accepted me as I was hoping it was going to be for like one of the hippie roles because it's set in 1969. It's called Jesus Revolution. They shot in Mobile, Alabama, Fairhope, Alabama, and I can't remember where else. But I just went for one day. They wanted me back for another day, but I only had like certain time off. And had I known, they were going to pay me like $200 just to sit there for a few hours, I probably would have tried to get more time off. But yeah, it was super fun. I walked into the church not expecting to actually be in an actual scene with anybody that was in the movie. I thought maybe I would be some background like footage. And I walk into this dark church and my eyes are adjusting to all these cameras. My first time ever being in this sort of like experience. And I just see someone sitting on the floor in the front, and it's Kelsey Grammer. I was just like, what? Like, what? He's in like this like sort of crushed or to me it looked like crushed velvet suit, but maybe it was just regular suit. Yeah, he was my preacher for like 2 hours, saying the same thing over. I got to see how like they do in Hollywood or whatever, the same scene like 27 times from different angles and things like that. I saw the trailer for it and I saw the scene that I'm in the trailer, but I didn't see myself in the trailer. So I don't know if I'll actually make it into the film, but it was still a cool experience.
Very cool. So there's like this Hollywood connection between you guys. So not only do you have beards, you guys have Hollywood connections.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. So being that you did mention volume 3 in the very beginning, do you think that you'll be doing like volume 24? Like what can we expect?
Yeah,
Ish.
I that's my intention is to keep it going. I don't think Joe and I have really talked about, is this sustainable for the two of us, because I know it's sustainable for myself, and I know that's a weird thing as a writer that you can generate that many stories, and I don't know if that's the case with everyone. So I would like to think we're going to keep going. I don't think we've talked beyond 3, and we've only barely talked about that. But we have thought about finally, to minimize the amount of writing we're doing and to make it a little more and fall in line with their traditional anthology, is to finally bring in a few more voices, have a little more representation as well. But the only reason we've been slow to do that is I don't want the concept to fall behind the wayside. And it's so easy for me to hire an author who's literally just dusting off an old story that they did and saying they did it at a coffee shop. And so I really am working on building a level of trust with certain authors out there in the horror field right now that I would invite to partake in this, and the invitation would come with money. So, it'd obviously be a paid, project, but I want to pay for the originality and the experience. I don't want to pay for something they've got in their hard drive already. So, but I'm finding out right now from Joe how long he thinks he can go. So,
I mean, I like working on these. I'm just not, especially with everything that's been going on. I've been moving all over, and then COVID before that, and so I feel kind of bad almost just because I'm not as prolific in terms of like getting things out as fast. So this is a year turnaround for each volume. So you think about 12 stories, you might have 6 stories a piece, but he's actually taken more than that each volume. If you've noticed, he's got usually one more than me just because I'm a little bit behind. But that was also when I was working full time at, my other job. So I don't know what it will look like, but yeah, I would like to keep doing that. Like the whole, like, I think the nephew, uncle dynamic adds to the sort of coolness factor. But I totally would, if needed, take a break or something and whatever, maybe contribute like one story. And if you had like more authors, but I think presently I could probably bang out another few. I've always got like ideas. I just in the past haven't had as much time to do them. But we'll see. I'm stuck in the mountains right now for a whole year, so we'll we'll see how prolific I am.
Yeah, and I say one thing I like about Joe and I specifically doing it too, besides the family connection, is because technically I think because I sidestepped writing for books and short stories and novels for so many years doing the screenwriting stuff, I think technically Joe is more experienced writer than I am. But what I like is our stories come from such different places, even though we grew up in the same area. And so it's really cool that I don't feel the need, at least yet, to touch base and say, hey, I have a zombie story. Hey, because even if he writes one himself, it's going to be so different from mine that we don't have to worry about repetition in the thing. So we just write so different. And including in this one, like, you can see his love of history, when you see that battle, which to me, the battle was the war that was displayed was more real, gritty, and scary than the supernatural element that kicks in by the end of that. And that story for me, I just thought the writing was terrific on that. I thought that was fantastic.
Thank you.
So yeah, but that's my thoughts on it.
Oh, real quick too. I don't know if he told you this or not, but we also had a Kickstarter recently where it was a post-apocalyptic anthology, and he kicked in a story for that as well, and that was a really good story. It really added a lot to the volume. It was a post-apocalypse kind of scenario, a shared world I came up with years ago, where each writer was given sort of the same world to play in, and could affect each other's characters on a minor level. But this one we kind of just like stretched out over like a period of time, like maybe a couple hundred years after the sun sent off these sort of solar flares and acted like EMPs and then burned everything up. So his story takes place like sort of in the far future. It's really cool. I enjoyed reading it.
That's so your guys' ideas are so cool, and like I said, I love that you guys introduce each story and you give a little background with how you came up with each story, and like I said, it's such a refreshing concept, and I totally get where you're coming from, Paul, and I'm gonna throw this out there. So if you need someone to vet these people and be I'll be your PI to make sure they're sitting at the coffee shops writing. I will be your shadow people. I will be your shadow people.
Nice.
I will make sure. So if I don't know, Susie Jordan, I just randomly picked a name. If Susie Jordan says, hey, I want to write for you and I can totally do this, I'm going to go follow Susie Jordan and I'm going to make sure she's sitting there at that coffee shop. And I'm going to make sure that she's writing her story. I'm going to be over her shoulder and I'm going to watch her hit send to you. So I will be your personal.
You should do your first volume with like everyone having a selfie, like on a volume where we don't work together or something. Have them do a selfie at the coffee shop.
Yeah, we might take you up on that. Yeah, and just the other side note to the scary part is generally you would not sight unseen buy a story for an anthology. You would have submissions and purchase the best. So that's where the second level of trust comes in.
For
is
sure.
And I have that with Joe. His stories are going to be there, so I'm cool. But with other people, they're getting one shot and they're writing something, and we have to take it. That's what we're hiring them for. So yeah. But thank you for the offer.
Yeah,
that's great.
I'll make sure Susie Jordy is right. So I'll have my beard too, so I'll make sure she doesn't know who I am.
Nice.
One of the Carros.
Yes. All right. On that note, guys, I would love if you could end the show with the tagline: "Go forth and be magical."
You want to start? Or...
Oh, all right. Yeah, you start, Joe.
All right, go
forth
and
be
magical.
Woohoo! I love it.